What happens if, God forbid, something happens in NATO and Russia and we get sucked into a war there? We got nothing. We don't have offensive or defensive. And obviously China, South China Sea, Taiwan, you can do all that in there. We have nothing. And so this great military, this amazing aircraft carrier strike groups that we have, all these destroyers, these aircraft, F-22s, F-16s, F-35s, you name it, all this stuff, all these tanks. What good is any of it if you don't have ammo to shoot with it? There is something on the horizon which was shown last night by President Trump, which really alarmed me, in that now he seems to be setting up an attempt to say that the coming election in November might be fraudulent by saying that the whole election system was rigged in 2020, and it's the Chinese. Now it's the Chinese.
Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies. Today with an update by the wonderful host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive. I've got Colonel Daniel Davis with me. Daniel, welcome.
Always good to be here, Pascal. Thanks for having me back.
Well, thank you so much for coming online again. The last time has been, I think, almost 2 years. It was when you first started your channel. And I'm very happy also to announce, if you're listening to this in any other language than English, Daniel's podcasts are also available now in Spanish, German, French, Portuguese. So do look for the Deep Dive also in other languages. And with this out of the way, Daniel, can you give us a little bit of your assessment of what's happening currently with Iran? I mean, we are speaking on July 17th, and the bombing campaign seems to be intensifying from both sides, actually.
Yeah, I tell you what, some have been saying over the last few days that this has devolved not from the bigger war and about nuclear weapons and programs and all that kind of stuff, and it's devolved into a battle for the Strait of Hormuz. I think that even that is too broad, and I think maybe now it's just a battle between the opinions and the emotions of the two sides. And that means primarily President Trump. And that is bad, bad news, because at least if you're struggling for the Strait of Hormuz, you have an objective in mind. But I think that when you analyze what the United States is doing right now, there's no logic to it. It's not leading towards any conclusion. It's just, we have some weapons, we have some missiles, let's shoot them. And I don't know, let's hit some boats here. Let's hit a bridge over there. Let's hit a control tower in this other place here. Let's just throw missiles downrange and then just keep saying, well, until they behave, whatever. But it's not designed to compel anything. Nobody should be under the slightest illusion that right now that the Iranian side can be coerced by more missile strikes to do anything at all that we want. I mean, we failed utterly to do that when it was all-out war. Apparently 15,000 sorties were fired during the first 40 days. That didn't compel them to submit. Then we tried a couple of months of a blockade. That didn't compel them to submit. And then we tried, okay, well, let's do the MOU. Here's the perverse part. The MOU was working to our benefit. We were going to benefit because the Strait of Hormuz, the dual blockades, had opened up, or at least we're in the process of opening up. We removed our blockade. The Iran side started to implement paragraph 5 of the 14-point memorandum of understanding, which unequivocally said that Iran and Iran only got to administer how the strait was opened up for the 60 days. It declared they would not charge any fees for that 60 days, but it equally declared they would determine how it would safely be open. And then even beyond that, and it had that very important word in there, only, for 60 days only, because then Iran said, starting on day 61, we're going to charge a fee. And then it said that in the paragraph also that only with Iran and the Sultanate of Oman would decide how it happened after that, in conjunction with conversations with other GCC countries. Nowhere in any of that, either in the current phase or in the second phase or the beyond 60 days, was the United States even mentioned. We had no role whatsoever. And yet days into this, we said, oh, you know what? I don't like it where they have control over it, even though we signed the damn document that gave them that control. And so we said, how about we set up our own southern corridor in the Strait of Hormuz off the Omani waters, and then we'll decide who goes through and how and whatever, under what conditions. And the Iranian side said, yeah, that's not what we agreed to. That's not what we're going to do. And they started giving warnings. And if you don't abide by our rules, then there will be consequences. And it's interesting from what I understand that there were a couple of ships, at least, that went through that southern corridor, but they went through with the permission and coordination with the IRGC, and they made it through. It's the ones that did not abide by whatever the terms they set. Those are the ones that were hit. And of course, that began this back and forth. And I want to say the 26th, 27th of June is when those first ones started. Then we had a bit of a respite. And then starting on the 7th of July, we started this nearly nonstop. And now then this last night, and I don't remember I hadn't seen if there was any this morning for our time, but at least 6 consecutive days of the U.S. Striking Iran and Iran retaliating each time. And that's what I keep saying. And what I had started saying on the first one, what is the purpose here? These missile strikes towards what end? And I'll just tell you, just probably an important aside to take here for the second. What Central Command has claimed in its ex post that it declares what they're doing, we declare why we're doing it. In order to bring the Iranians back into compliance with the MOU and to stop attacking civilian tankers in the Gulf region. And then day before yesterday, I actually did a whole show just on this because I was just livid. We had it around, I think it was in Washington, D.C. time, about 4:53 p.m. We announced that we had struck a civilian tanker that was steaming towards Karg Island. Now, if you look at a map, you see that anything in the Gulf of Arabia that was steaming towards Karg Island means it was going away from the Strait of Hormuz, away from the blockade line set by the United States in the Gulf of Oman. And we said we sent a Hellfire missile into its smokestack, because we told it not to go there. That's not the blockade. The blockade is in the other direction, and that is a civilian tanker. 5 hours later, then we announced the next round of strikes, and we said that it was because Iran had been firing on innocent civilian tankers. And I said, come on, what kind of perverse world is this when we fire on a civilian tanker because it didn't do what we told it, and then we claim we attacked this other country because they did the identical thing we did by firing on a civilian tanker? It just defies any kind of logic. And of course, everybody sees this, Pascal. Everybody sees this. And I'm not just talking about Iran. I'm talking about people in the region who want the war to be over. Everybody wants this war to be over. Our allies in Europe, Russia, China, the global South, Asia, you name it, everybody sees this. And they're thinking, what is wrong with America? And okay, so that's my side. Sorry for that rant for a moment. But let's get back to the practical things. Even forget about the morality and take that we don't have any. What are you wanting to accomplish? Do we think that by striking these targets that Iran is going to say, you know what, Washington, sure, I know you assassinated our leader. I know everybody's demanding revenge for that. And a lot of people are mad at us. And most people are mad at us for even having negotiations with you. But whatever, sure. Whatever you ask for, we'll give. Does anybody think that that's even in the realm of theoretical possibility? I mean, every time we do this kind of stuff, especially with the contradictions I just mentioned, it hardens the resolve even more, which is amazing because after assassinating their leader and seeing this massive outpouring from allegedly 40 million Iranians, and the pictures and the videos certainly make that a plausible number, they're not going to give in to anything. And yet we keep doing it. And that's bad enough. If that's where we stop, that would be an awful situation. And what are we doing? But in the last 12 hours or so, it's gotten worse because now we did ramp up the target list and the types of targets we attacked. And President Trump had been signaling this the last part of the week, and apparently overnight he did it. He hit a bridge, apparently a fairly important one in Iran, southern Iran. He hit other civilian industries. He hit some civilian control towers, things that have nothing to do with any military. And, let me just also point out, if people hear bridge, well, that's a legitimate military target. It can be if that target has anything to do with the military balance. Like, say, for example, in the Russia-Ukraine war. If the Russians are saying, hey, we're trying to minimize militarily the Ukraine side all along the Eastern Front. And so we're going to start hitting bridges behind them through which they have logistics to get lethal military aid or reinforcements, medical aid, whatever, to the front. So we're going to knock those bridges out so they can't get there. That has military utility, and that is a legal military target, as is the same thing on the Russian side. If the Ukrainians hit bridges in Russia or in the Russian-controlled areas, that's a legitimate military target. This, on the other hand, is not a legitimate military target because there is no front line. There is no battle at all. This bridge had nothing to do with control of the Strait of Hormuz. It's just a bridge that people used. I mean, that's just what the thing was for. So there's no military utility in it. And so it's almost pointless to say that it was a war crime because no one cares about that anymore in America. So we'll just leave that for the moment. But it just at least look at the military utility. It provides nothing for us. We are not benefited anything now today. Iran is not weaker today than they were yesterday, but they're a lot more angry. And now then they have done what they promised to do if President Trump escalated the target list. And they have hit targets. I saw just a minute ago that Kuwait was is furious, their government, because they said you hit a desalination plant and a I believe it was a reprocessing plant for their oil industry, and they're really angry about this. I mean, what else can they do? They have to say that, but I would wager that their anger was more directed at Washington for introducing that target because they're just sitting there in the middle of the desert. They can't do anything. Our air defense is clearly ineffective. So they're defenseless. So if America strikes targets in Iran, they're the easiest target to hit. So they, along with some of the other GCC countries, are going to continue to get hit. And the question is, how much further are we going to go? And the Iranian side is saying, yeah, we're going to keep going a long way. Let's see. I think if I still have it up handy here. Yeah, this is during the Friday prayer today. Mohammed Javad Haj Ali Akbari, who leads the Friday prayers in Tehran, said that the first step in Iran seeking revenge is not just to go and assassinate President Trump, but he said it is pursuing America's withdrawal from the region, removing the Zionist regime from the map of West Asia, and ending America's hegemonic position in the world will be the steps on this path. So, I mean, now that's not an official government position, but it is government prayer. It is official prayers in Tehran. So you can't imagine he said this just off the cuff. That seems to be the idea now that they're saying, okay, you don't want to do the MOU? We've got other objectives. And so they're hardening their positions and they're increasing their objectives. If we had just, this is driving me crazy, Pascal. If we had just let the MOU roll, and if we had just said, okay, we're going to do what we agreed to. We're going to be good to our word. We're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to remove our blockade. You're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz. You're going to keep your word. Traffic is going to start flowing back out. It had gotten up to about a third. Maybe it would have been a half or 75% by this point. Who knows? And yeah, we're going to keep the sanctions off. We're going to release the frozen funds. We're going to work on this other issue about the reconstruction funds or whatever. And then once we get that, then now we'll start doing the other part that we want, which is negotiating a no nuclear weapons program, et cetera. If we had just let it roll, the price of oil would probably be even lower than 70 right now. And instead, it's going up north and the flow would have gone out. So the reason why the oil would have gone down, because the crude oil, natural gas, fertilizers, aluminum, sulfur, all the things that everybody around the world needs, helium, much bigger than a lot of people realize. All that stuff could be getting back to, at least on the track to getting normal, and everybody would benefit. Instead, Pascal, because we have chosen, number one, that President Trump has no patience, and so he didn't even want to wait the 60 days. He didn't even wait 30 days. And so now then we have exacerbated the situation and started this tit for tat, but it's not really a tit for tat. It's an escalation going up different rungs. Every time it goes a little bit higher, as we're seeing play out right now. And this cannot end anywhere good for our side. We've already shown we don't have the military capacity to compel compliance. All we have the capacity to do is blow up a bunch of stuff. We can hit any bridge we want to shoot. We can blow up buildings left and right. We can kill a lot of people. There's no question about that. And Iran can't stop it. That does not accomplish anything for the United States. It doesn't get us anywhere closer. And those things that we're hitting had nothing to do with Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. And they're showing they will continue to exact a price every day that we keep going down this path. And they don't like getting hit with missiles. They hate it. It is causing damage, but they're like, what we're doing to you is going to cause even more and permanent damage, something that you're going to have a hard time getting over. And I just don't know where this is going, but it's going to be someplace bad.
That's what everybody is wondering right now, Danny. Like, what is the strategy? And even John Mearsheimer on Glenn Deason's podcast was saying, like, there probably isn't. This is probably just the reaction, a tit for tat, because there's nothing else the United States has to answer right now. But if we suppose that this is not the group that ultimately is going to get to call the shots, but it's going to be some kind of mix, the one thing we could speculate on is that what the United States needed at the moment was a bit of time for literally reloading, that there was not enough material in the region, and now there is again for another 1 or 2 weeks. So why not try again and again? Maybe it breaks at the 5th or 6th or 7th interval. What do you think about that?
Okay, I have heard that, and I'm like, then I guess these people are even more insane than I gave them credit for. Are you kidding me? Have you looked at these diagrams of what these missile cities and underground facilities are like, scattered throughout, dozens of them throughout their country that's as big as much of Western Europe, under granite mountains, that we tried in some cases, like I want to say it was Yazd Mountain. We tried like multiple times. All we ended up doing was just blowing some rocks up on the top of the mountain, didn't disturb anything underneath it, and which was the case with most of these places. The only time we degraded some of these was when we hit the exit ramps or the exit corridors or the exit silos, etc., which could be repaired and for the most part have been. So why do you want to take, when we used, by many public accounts, somewhere between 45 and 50% of our key offensive and defensive missile systems in a futile attempt in the first 40 days of fighting? Upon what rationale would anybody who has control over the use of these things and has the spreadsheet that show the classified numbers of how many we have, how long it takes to replace them? And the Wall Street Journal, I think it was reported this just a few days ago, that it takes about it'll take about 3 years once everything stops, and I think that's including both Russia, Ukraine war, and this one here, to get us back to where we started. 3 years. But
in terms of equipment, like military
equipment. In terms
equipment.
of missile inventories, how many missiles we have. So what rationale would you have, the guys who have access to this spreadsheet and the reproduction capabilities, to say, let's try again. Let's bring more over there to fail the same way with the same missiles on the same targets? You will not get another outcome. But what you will do, Pascal, is you will have your inventories even lower. And there is a point to where you're going to say either we may literally run out of some of these Tomahawks, the JASSMs, especially the two biggest categories of long-range strike missiles that we have. And then what are you going to do? What happens if, God forbid, something happens in NATO and Russia and we get sucked into a war there? We got nothing. We don't have offensive or defensive. And obviously China, South China Sea, Taiwan, you can do all that in there. We have nothing. And so this great military, this amazing aircraft carrier strike groups that we have, all these destroyers, these aircraft, F-22s, F-16s, F-35s, you name it, all this stuff, all these tanks. What good is any of it if you don't have ammo to shoot with it? That's what they're risking by what they're doing now.
But so something turns it around, right? The system turns it around. So question again, and McGregor, Colonel McGregor keeps saying that the only thing that will bring this to an end is some form of internal revolution. But also that there's nothing on the horizon, is there?
Well, if you're talking about the United States, there is something on the horizon, which was shown last night by President Trump, which really alarmed me, in that now he seems to be setting up an attempt to say that the coming election in November might be fraudulent, by saying that the whole election system was rigged in 2020, and it's the Chinese. Now it's the Chinese. Sometimes it's Antifa. I mean, they just pick it, and the communists. It's back. I thought that was gone with Senator McCarthy in the 1950s. Apparently that has made a resurgence as well. He's just grasping at straws, saying anything that he can that undermines confidence in the system, so that no matter how it works out, people don't believe in the results. And so if he's going to get a whitewashing at the congressional level, and possibly even in the Senate, I mean, that happens nearly every time in similar situations where you have one party with the House, the Senate, and the White House. That's normal. That happens all the time. And in this conditions, especially the economic conditions, it's going to be a shellacking, no matter, even aside from the war issue. But now he's setting up a condition to where if they lose, that it's going to be fraudulent. And is he even going to accept the terms if he gets a Democrat-led Congress, which is nearly certain? In fact, I would say it is certain, politically certain. And now then he's undermining that. So, and of course, this is music to the ears of so many on the right, because they have just been mesmerized over and over about he was cheating. He never acknowledged that he actually lost the 2020 election, even though there was whatever it was, 10,000 lawsuits. I don't know what the number was. It was a lot. Internal investigations by the Justice Department, the FBI, Homeland Security, everybody who's looked at this all said there were minor irregularities here and there, but the elections were valid. They were right. The system worked. It protected us. But he undermines it every day. And so one has to ask, what is going to happen later this year when the election turns out the way that it likely will? What is he going to do then? I worry about that.
I mean, they're building now up the rhetoric for it, right? With these, extreme left terrorism, ELT,
yes.
That it's something more to crack down internally. I mean, it just seems to, maybe it is boiling up in a way that might just make the whole thing like go crazy a couple of months down the road. And so you're seeing internally the heat building up.
They are. In fact, I actually put out a couple of posts on X last night that I was really alarmed by that, because they are just doubling down. This actually goes hand in hand with the undercutting the election integrity issue by saying we are going after radical left terrorism, and not terrorism, radical left terrorism. Now, in the Biden and Obama administrations, they did something that I was arguing against at the time too, and they were talking about radical right terrorism, and they were talking about all this stuff. And I was saying back then the same thing I'm saying now: just terrorism. If somebody's doing terrorism, it's against the law, it's bad, it's wrong for our country. Fix it, stop it, prevent it, whatever. But don't just ignore one half of the equation and go after the one you don't like, because that leads to the possibility that the president and the administration get to decide who is radical left and who is just left. And I fear that means anybody who wins an election coming up that we don't like, well, they're radicals. And so based on this new law, we have to go and do something with them. I mean, the legal foundation is being set up to control people of one political party that gets to be determined by the other political party that's in charge of the White House right now. And that is an incredibly dangerous position for our country.
A very dangerous one. So, Danny, I promised you 45 minutes, and we are reaching that limit. I just want to thank you very much. We will have to talk again, because this story is anything from over on any side or on no side.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，选择原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌。它添加有羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。